Hi, I'm Sophie and welcome to my world. Well, here we are back again making a duct tape hat. That's right. And today we're going to make the brim. So here's what you need to make your brim. You're going to need the template from my website, duct tape, a ruler, scissors, Sharpie pen, parchment paper, and a cereal box for the cardboard. You'll also need the band that we made from part 1 and X-Acto knife. The first thing you're going to need is you are going to need the template, which you can get on my website, www.sophie-world.com. Download that, cut it out. And what we are going to use is, I've found the best thing is cereal boxes. So I'm going to take a cereal box, open it up, and turn it inside out, just like this. Take my template, lay it on top, trace it out, and then cut it out so that I end up with a nice cut-out piece of cardboard. Now, for this project, you are going to need a lot of little tiny pieces of duct tape. And do this ahead of time so that you don't have to worry about stopping and cutting each time. The best way to do this, I've already done a whole bunch for myself, but the best way to do this is, I'll just show you very quickly. Lay this out on your work surface. Take your X-Acto knife and cut them every ½ inch. And if you just do this ahead of time, this will give you an easier way of making a project. So here's the thing, you want about 30 inches cut into ½ inch strips. So just to give you the heads up on that. What we are going to start by doing is covering this entire edge on the outer edge here with duct tape. So you take the little edges and cover those first. Now, this is probably the hardest part to cover. And what I like to do is just take my tape and put it kind of catty corner on an angle here. That's about I guess about a 45-degree angle here, right around that edge. And you want to get it pretty darn close, because what we're going to do is actually wrap the whole thing around. I'm just going to wrap it like a wrapper all the way around. So it's like I've coated the entire end cap there, that little horn. And now I can start coming back in this direction and wrapping these around in little pieces. Once you start getting to the larger parts, you won't be wrapping it entirely, but on these smaller parts, these edges, you are going to be wrapping the entire piece with a piece of tape. And as you can see on the back here, we've got a little extra that's open like that. If you flip it over and you see that, cover that up. So I'm going to cover it up here. Again, just wrap it around. Get it as close as you can so that you don't have to cut. So I've got that. Wrap it around here. There we go. And what I meant by that is that if I had had too much tape, it would have stuck to itself. And when it sticks to itself, then what happens is it seals itself. And when it seals itself, then you have to cut it. So you don't want to do that. You want to just try to make it so that it's coating the entire cardboard. Once you get started at this point, though, now that we're going into the rounded part, it gets a little easier. And you're just going to pick these pieces up and start going around. Now, the most important part about this is to overlap. You want to make sure you're always overlapping by a tiny little bit, and you're covering every little bit. So you can flip it over every now and then and just make sure that you're covering every little bit of this. And you can see why you have a need for lots and lots of these little strips, because you are covering this entire area. Now you're probably saying, well, why don't I just use big giant strips? Wouldn't that be easier? Here's the problem. Because you are going on a curve, if you sew, you would understand this. This is one of the things about sewing that I learned. You've always got to have little notches, or what you end up getting are these big kind of keloids. You get these wrinkles, and that's not going to look very good. Now, you certainly, if that's the way you want to do it, you can do it, but I'm just giving you my heads up on the way that I like to do this. And this turned out to be the easiest way for me. So as you can see, I'm just covering, and there's the back side of it. So you're just going to continue doing that for the entire front end, not the back end, just the front end, so that it ends up looking like that. And as you can see, the edges on either side completely covered, and then it comes all the way around the front. And you can see on both sides it's covered. There's a little spot right there I just noticed. I'm going to cover that. I just want to make sure this whole backer is covered like that. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to make a giant label. Now, if you don't know how to make a sticker, I'm going to teach you right now, but you could always go back to my website, www.sophie-world.com, and learn how to make a sticker. Basically, what we're doing here is we're going to take some parchment paper, and we're going to make a double-sided sticker. So I've got tape that is 20 inches long here, and I'm laying it on my parchment paper, half on, half off, as you can see. Going to take another strip. And when I lay this down, I want to make sure that I'm overlapping by at least 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Take my third strip. 4 strips should do you. Lay it over. And then a 5th strip. And lay it down. Actually, what I'm going to do is move this down a little bit, because what I want to do is get it halfway on here. I use my template. What I'm making is a 2-sided sticker. There we go. So I'm going to pull this up and flip this over. So I want to make sure that it's even on both sides so that it is big enough when I take my template and lay this on here that I can trace this on. I'm going to just trace it around here, cut it out, and I'll end up with this double-sided sticker. And as you can see, the parchment paper is in between my 2 layers. I'm going to hold on to this, because right now what we're going to do is attach this fabulous brim to the hat. This is where we're going to need lots and lots of these little pieces of tape again. And this time, I've actually split them in half even further. So I had my 1-inch strips that were, or 1/2-inch strips that were 2 inches long. Now I'm cutting these in half to make them even smaller. And the reason is I'm going to use these to stick the brim to the band. Now, I'm going to get that centered, nice and centered, right about there. And what I'm going to do is just kind of mark off a couple spots here first. So you can see I just lift that up and just place it right onto the brim. Lift it up. So I'm getting kind of like the pressure points, or the important points, spaces where it'll help it to hold together while I'm working on it, because I'm going to actually start on the inside once I've got this kind of secured here. Okay, so I'm going to come around to this side right here. There we go. Okay, so see, I've got about 7 pieces here, and you can see that that's forming the hat shape. Now what I'm going to do, take all these little pieces of tape. I'm going to do exactly like I did at the front there, but as you can see, it's a lot easier on the back side. And you just keep going around and around here, sealing the brim to the hat. And then you come to the outside again, and lay your strips down. As you can see, if you've got your strips all cut, then you can make these go really quickly. I'm going to actually jump ahead here just because this, as you can see, this takes a while. This is why I said, if you saw the first video, it takes about 2 hours to make this hat. So I'm going to jump ahead here. As you see, once this is all done, there'll be all these little pieces here, and there's all these little pieces here. We want to cover that up and make that nice and neat. So that's why we've made this sticker. And I peel apart the sticker and lay it right over top, as close as I can get. There we go. And this is going to seal in all those little pieces of tape and make it nice and sturdy and make it all one piece. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the back. Now I have found that parchment paper is the best way to do this, but I've also discovered that, and this is not to be a product placement, but Reynolds brand parchment paper seems to be the best. So now you can see that makes that nice and clean and nice and clean, and we are ready to almost finish this hat off. All we need, well, actually, if you just want to have one of those visor bands, you're set. But I'm going to teach you next how to put the topper on so that you have an actual hat. So for the next steps and more stuff like this, come and check us out at Sophie-World.com.